Welcome to Wisdom Inspired, a podcast designed to help high achievers to eliminate burnout and overwhelm. Now let's prepare to open our hearts, our minds, and our notebooks to receive today's wisdom. And so we're in a series where we're breaking down each letter of entrepreneur. We're discussing the various characteristics and principles of an entrepreneur. Why is it the best time to embark upon a new venture or continue in your entrepreneurial journey? What does the Bible say about entrepreneurship? What does it look like for believers? What are some examples that we can follow? And so I'm very, very excited about this series and this journey we're taking. And so far we've determined that the E is for entrepreneur, right? One who seeks opportunities for profit and by doing so creates new markets and fresh opportunities. They create and run a new business for profit by selling products or services. The E is also for E principles. E principles where you commit to the pursuit of excellence, whose goal is to glorify God in an exemplary way with extraordinary leadership, right? And so those are the E principles. The N stands for the 3 N essentials: network, networks, and nurture. Network, net worth, and nurture. Now today, we begin with the letter T. And so today's topic is the 3 T's of a preneur. The 3 T's of a preneur. So let's jump right in. So much of the literature that you see on entrepreneurship focuses on the characteristics to define what an entrepreneur is. And although we use the words traits and characteristics interchangeably, there is a difference between the two. And so that's what the first T is for, trait. That's what we're going to focus on as one of the T's of a preneur. So when we look at the word trait, we'll find that it is an identifying characteristic, a feature of an individual that is inherent, inborn, ingrained, that is ingrained as a part of a person or thing. It's like it cannot be separated, right? And then when we think about that word trait, even when we think about someone who is a firefighter, right, and we think about the fact that what's inherently ingrained in that occupation is danger. It's just a part of what firefighting is, right? And so as an entrepreneur and a small business owner and your endeavors as an entrepreneur or small business owner, it is inherently risky, right? And so that is a trait of entrepreneurship, okay? And so a characteristic, on the other hand, is a distinguishable feature of a person or thing, and it is something that can be developed, and it helps to identify a trait. So that's the difference between a trait and a characteristic. And so having said that, what are some key traits? That's where the question becomes, because we can find characteristics, okay? If you search on Google, you'll find tons of characteristics of an entrepreneur. And you'll find traits as well. But I think it's just important that we understand what the difference is, okay? And so as I was doing my research, I found an article on entrepreneur.com that I believe will help us to kind of clarify my thought around traits and characteristics. So the article was entitled "The 5 Personality Traits of All Entrepreneurs That They Must Have." Okay, I just jacked up the title, but let me just say that one more time. The 5 personality traits all entrepreneurs must have. And the thing is, most of us have heard of these, traits, but we are thinking maybe that they're characteristics when in fact they're actually traits. Okay? And so and what I mean by that, again, it's ingrained. It's like it's like having the can't help it, right? So the 5 traits are risk takers. This is a part of what an entrepreneur has that's ingrained in their personality, okay? A risk taker, not allowing uncertainty or potential failure to keep you from doing what needs to be done. Seeing challenges and risks as opportunities, not problems. That is a trait that is ingrained in an entrepreneur's personality. The next one is optimism. Entrepreneurs are mainly optimistic about the future and are always looking ahead. It's the lens that an entrepreneur sees through. It's like always seeing the cup half full, not empty or half empty, right? So risk takers, optimistic. And then the next one is creativity, seeing the world differently and always thinking outside of the box, always thinking from a place of creativity. And normally it just differs from everyone else's thinking, right? And then passion. The entrepreneurs are passionate, and entrepreneurs are not in it for the money. It's like if you think of something that you will do for free, right? That is a part of who you are. You love what you do, and you're not in it for money. Money is just a byproduct of doing what you love. And that doesn't mean you don't charge money. That's a whole different conversation, okay? But passion is one of those traits. And then motivation. Entrepreneurs are dedicated to their work. They're not relying on someone else pushing them toward their goals or getting done what needs to be done, because that motivation comes from within, right? And the thing is, it's not like we don't have times where we're like, okay, I just don't know about this thing, right? But it's just something that's always pushing us, moving us toward our goal, moving us to do the things that we feel are necessary. It's like we don't need that outside thing to push us, okay? And so those are the 5 personality traits. And again, you have probably heard of these things, but know that as an entrepreneur, these are traits, not necessarily characteristics, but they are characteristics that help you to identify the traits. So hopefully you are not confused. All right, let's move on to the second T of a preneur, okay? So the second T of a preneur is tenacity. And tenacity is driven by a determination to achieve a goal, unwillingness to give up anything, to give up until you give up, right? And we just really don't give up. And so it's like a person who doesn't give up easily and is willing to put the work in. And this is crucial. This is essential for having that mindset that an entrepreneur needs, right? Especially when you feel like what you're working on is not working, when you feel like your efforts that you're putting into a project or whatever it is you're working on, you feel like you're doing it in vain. And it just seems like it's not working or producing the type of results that you want. It's the tenacity that's needed, right? And tenacity is also a trait that requires other components. It requires patience, it requires creativity, it requires analytical thinking to help you to maintain focus on achieving your goals. It's like when you are working on something and you think, okay, this thing doesn't seem to be working, and you just kind of delve into that creative aspect and try something else, right? And it's like you just don't give up, because you know in your know of knowings that somehow this thing that I'm working on is going to work. It's either going to work on me or it's going to work on the thing that I'm working on, right? So it's tenacity that helps you to just keep trying, keep working, keep pushing, keep moving, okay? So that's the second T of Preneur. The third T of a Preneur is timing. And when I was thinking about this, I, thought about Solomon, right? And there's a scripture in Solomon, but in Ecclesiastes that Solomon wrote. But most of you, are familiar with Solomon. He was wise, right? He was a wealthy entrepreneur that had various business interests, including international trade, merchant ships. He was also a consultant. And so if you want to look at 1 Kings 10:22 through 29, and then 2 Chronicles 9:13 and 14, you'll see some of what Solomon did. But in Ecclesiastes 11:14, he says, "He that observeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap." The NIV version says, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." Meaning there is never a perfect time for you to launch your entrepreneurial endeavor or to get started or to do whatever that thing is you're working on. A lot of times we're just waiting for the right thing. We're watching the wind, right? And we're stalling, right? Because we're looking at the clouds. And so we're focused so much on those things that we never get started. And in most instances, we just simply need to start somewhere. We're waiting, I'm waiting on a sign, or I'm waiting for God to do this, when in fact he's waiting for you, right? And what brought to mind as I was, continuing to prepare for the lesson for today, it just made me think about a time when I was at a crossroads, when I was contemplating whether or not it was time for me to go full-time in my organizing business. And I talk about this a lot because it was a really pivotal point in my life. I was on staff at the church, and I remember one day I was sitting in my office, and one of the members who was a self-employed electrician, he was doing some work at the church, and then he stopped by as he was getting ready to leave. And so we would often talk about business and entrepreneurship and things like that. And so, but he had no idea I was at such a crossroads, and I was really just toiling over, the things that I felt like God was telling me to do. And I was trying to fit clients in wherever I could. I was still working part-time in my business, but I was also working part-time at the church. But I knew that I couldn't continue at that rate. But the thing was that not only was I toiling about that, it was at the height of the mortgage industry crisis back in 2008. My husband was out of work. We were in the process of foreclosing on our home, and to me, that was not a good time to be taking that kind of a risk. But the thing is, the money that I was making at the church was not enough, right? And so, but I knew that God was saying something. I knew that he was showing me some stuff, right? But I was just afraid to take that next step. But during that conversation, and what seemed to me like what I call profoundly prophetic moments, he made what I called a profoundly prophetic statement to me. And so he said, Eldrima, you will never know what's possible in your business by sitting on that side of the desk. And that for me was a confirmation. That for me was something that I needed to hear. It was like God was speaking to him, and it just pierced me. So I took a leap of faith, and I never turned back. Clients were coming out of the woodwork. And had I stayed behind that desk, I would never have known the possibilities. And I'm not trying to say that this was easy, because it wasn't. But I had to make that move. And all I'm saying is that we can always find a valid reason to put off doing something. We can always find a pretty good excuse for not starting something that's seems to be challenging or difficult or even life-changing. Because this was something that actually changed our lives, my husband and I's life. I never turned back. And so I said all that to say, and I shared this experience many, many times. But I shared this to encourage you. I shared this so that if you are at that point in your life, whether you're listening live or whether you listen to the podcast, the recording of this, next month, or a year from now, hopefully you will find it within yourself. Hopefully you will listen to all the things that were shared today on this recording and say, yeah, I can identify with that. Yeah, I'm at that point in my life. Yeah, this is something that God is telling me, right? And do it. Do what God is telling you to do. So I hope that today's wisdom has inspired you. I hope you've been encouraged. That is always our prayer. And I hope you meet us back on the line next time, because I know I've probably gone over my time. So meet us back on the line next time. Same time, same place, same station with more wisdom inspired. Have a wildly...
I hope you enjoyed the episode of Wisdom Inspired that was brought to you by the AAC Co-working Community, a virtual community designed to support female entrepreneurs, business owners, and freelance professionals. For more, go to wisdominspired.net.